What's up, everyone? Welcome to Pat's Chat. I'm Doug Kyed, joined as always by Michael Hurley. We haven't done one of these in almost a week, but last week's news came so rapidly that we had to kind of fire two off right away. But it's good being back. How you doing, Michael?
Can we call this an emergency podcast? Because you and I are both survivors of the Massachusetts earthquake.
That is
Did you
true.
feel it? Did you
I
feel
was
it?
driving at the time, and I did not feel it.
The rubber really helps absorb those. I was sitting on the couch with my 7-year-old daughter, and she didn't notice, but I was like, it sounded like a semi, because we live on a main road, so big
Yeah.
trucks drive in the front a lot, and like sometimes they shake the house. It sounded like one drove right through our backyard, and like someone was shaking our patio door, and I was like, what was that? And she was like, what? And I was like, so that tells you how big the earthquake was, but it was noticeable. I was like, that was earthquakey, but I didn't like go to my phone or check. It wasn't until 20 minutes later I got a text. Did you feel the earthquake? I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Must have been an earthquake. Yeah, no, shocks, rubber, all those kind of things. I'm also farther from Maine from
True.
you.
True.
So
Yeah.
being in southeastern Massachusetts slash Metro West area,
Right.
maybe we didn't get it as much, but
Yeah,
yeah,
no. It was real, but I survived. Nothing fell, nothing broke. But
fantastic news. Yeah, I don't think anything fell or broke in our house either. But
lots of tweets. Lots of tweets. But yeah, emergency podcast.
I thought this was going to be an emergency podcast over the Doug Marrone hire, but
Another a Doug has entered the building. Like, do you when he does a press conference next year, are you just gonna be like, do you have like a nod, like a Doug nod, like just the eyebrow raise, sort of like a Jeep thing, like a Jeep wave?
what's the line in Mallrats? Is it like "Do it, Doug" or something like that?
I haven't seen Mallrats since probably 1998, so I'm sorry. It's been a minute.
Maybe I'll start singing the Doug theme song. Do, 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 do.
There aren't. Do you encounter many Dougs?
No, and I
Yeah.
think like most Dougs are more around the Doug Marrone age than the Doug Kyed age.
Yeah, I'm gonna double check, but like in my phone book, there's 1,000 Michaels.
Oh
Pretty
yeah,
sure there's one Doug.
yeah. We did a lot of Michael talk last week, and now we're doing some Doug chat.
Huh. 3 Dougs. I got
Three
3 Dougs.
Dougs.
That's you do. I guess there's not a noticeable,
I just felt like
but
a tinge of jealousy over that. I don't know why. Like I thought I was gonna be the only one.
sorry, man. One person I haven't contacted in over a decade, so I should probably get rid of him. But anyways,
I
Doug
have
Marone.
3 other Dougs, I believe, in my phone. Not a
That's
ton.
pretty good. That's
Don't know
pretty
a lot
good.
of them. Yeah, Doug
Doug Marone.
Marrone
Doug Marone.
probably gonna be. I don't know this for a fact. Seems like writing on the wall. Probably gonna be the offensive line coach.
Yep.
Former head coach. Was with the Bills, with the Jags. He's been with Alabama recently. He's been with the Saints. He's been with Boston College. Big name. Certainly a guy who knows what he's doing, which I think is a big theme of what we've been looking for in coaches.
It's the same thing we said last week, where the criticism last year, you had under and inexperienced guys, including Scott Peters, who was the offensive line coach after only being assistant. I'm just going to give you the fast forward of the Wikipedia here of Doug Marrone. Ready?
It's long. It's very long.
I know, but all the times he was offensive line coach. Okay. And now
Yeah.
I'm going to include offensive tackles coach, which is wild. He had tight ends, tight ends and tackles, but these are all the times he was an O-line coach. 93 with Coast Guard, 94 with Northeastern. Rest in peace to their program. 97 to 99 with Georgia Tech, 2000 with Georgia, 2001 with Tennessee, the Jets from 02 to 05, the Saints from 06 to 08, long head coaching stint with Syracuse and Buffalo, back to Jacksonville O-line coach 15-16, did some head coaching there, Alabama O-line coach in 2021, Saints O-line coach 2022-23, and now we assume Patriots. That is experience. If that's maybe a lack of ability to stay anywhere for very long. It is, but it's also experience, which is much needed when you had, yes, a dearth of talent on the offensive line, but also nobody to make the most of it.
Scott Peters had been an offensive line coach since I was 37 years old, and Doug Marrone has been an offensive line coach since I was 7 years old. So I think that it's like a whole life basically that he's been an offensive line coach longer than Scott Peters.
Right. Football guy, makes sense with Vrabel. Those two guys look like they could stare at each other and spit tobacco at each other's feet for an hour and love it. So.
I used to love a Doug Marrone like opposing head coach conference call They were always fun. He was always like, just like real gregarious, like really wanted to talk to everyone, want to know how like Boston was doing
he's a dude.
Yeah.
This is our first derailment of the day, although the Doug talk maybe our second derailment. What happened to conference calls? Those were sweet.
I know, those were fun.
Conference calls. You get to talk to, the Jeff Fisher one was unbelievable when he didn't know the players that were on the Patriots, but every week you'd get to talk to a player and a coach on the phone for 10 minutes, and it was nice. And then that one, I think Zoom sort of ended it, like the COVID era. I remember Vrabel doing one.
That was an eventful one for those who know, for people in the know, for those who know.
I'm blanking.
I'll tell you about it later.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. You did tell me about it, but I remember asking him about Rodney Harrison not getting in the Hall of Fame. So it was within the past 5 years. That might've been post-COVID. I don't know. I just bring them back. NFL. They were nice.
They were fun. Yeah. There was definitely one in 2018 with Vrabel. I think that there was some during the COVID era. I know like Andy Reid's were always so short. He would give you like 4 words on every question. I was like, wow, those are tough. Some players just like clearly didn't want to do it, didn't want to be there. But no, Marone was always a fun one. I feel like we were all like, oh, nice. It's a Doug Marrone conference call.
Hell yeah.
And he did quite a few of them because he was the Bills head coach. So we got 2 a year for a while. And he was with the Jags.
Well, only 2 years as the head coach of Buffalo, but then he was with the Jags for 4 years. So that's a lot of.
And they had at least like the AFC Championship game during that time period.
Miles Jack was down, but what are you going to do?
That's true. So yeah, Doug Marrone, big name. Thomas Brown, another big name. I promised big names in the headline. I'm giving you guys big names. Thomas Brown was the interim head coach with the Bears. He had an interesting ascent last year where he was, I believe, tight ends coach / passing game coordinator to begin the season. Then moved up to offensive coordinator when Shane Waldron got fired, and then got moved up to head coach when Matt Eberflus got fired. So
busy.
He really added to his resume in like a 4-month span pretty impressively, I'd say.
Yeah. And that's after having worked under Sean McVay. But Doug, you're missing the headline on Thomas Brown is that he is an expert in knowing which year to have been born in, which is 1986. So many great conversations await about graduating in 04 and 08.
He's a May 86. I'm a June 86. You're a July 86, right? Wow.
I smell a Pat's Chat guest spot coming up soon.
Also, seems like he was a 04 high school graduate because he was a freshman at Georgia in 2004.
Yep. Just like
he was in the 2008 draft. So 2008 college graduate. He's one of us.
Well, we weren't drafted, unfortunately. We had to stick it out for that senior year.
I was an undrafted free agent that year.
I didn't get picked. But look, I mean, got a good resume.
Yep.
Sure.
I think it's been reported passing game coordinator and tight ends coach with the Patriots. So good experience in the tight end room. I'm going to be adding the passing game coordinator element as well. I'm curious if like maybe Marone gets like run game coordinator or something too. That could make sense. Or maybe Tony Dews, the other hire, does. But it seems like they are going to have like beyond just offensive and defensive coordinators, also those other types of coordinators as well. One guy that we still don't know, we haven't heard anything about a wide receivers coach, and that's like arguably one of the most important positions Patriots still need to find a coach, just given the youth, inexperience, personalities in that wide receivers room. So the one guy I would be going after, I know I've probably said this before, but Sean Jefferson was with the Jets last year. The Jets famously are changing their head coach. So maybe Aaron Glenn keeps him around there. But Sean Jefferson's done a good job throughout his career. And I don't know. That's who I would be aiming for. But I don't think there's really any connections with Vrabel, McDaniels, Marone, Thomas Brown. I don't think there's really any connections there. But still a good veteran wide receivers coach, Sean Jefferson.
I would agree. I think that's a good name. I was going to say, we don't really rank our wide receivers coaches in the NFL, but maybe we need to start doing that. Maybe that needs to be a Pat's Chat staple where we say top 25 wide receivers coaches in the NFL.
Keenan McCardle up there as well, but he was with the Vikings. Don't think he's going to be leaving the Vikings anytime soon. I mean, the other guy that you would want to go after is Brian Hartline with Ohio State. But considering he's been there since 2017 and hasn't left yet, like maybe Vrabel could get him to go. But he's done a fantastic job with Ohio State.
Yes. He still has 2 more years to work with Jeremiah Smith, so I would feel like he's not going anywhere. I would not, personally. I feel like he's going to elevate me to I could be king of England by the time he leaves college. He's also 2 more years.
He's also a co-offensive coordinator as well, so maybe he wouldn't want to make that jump. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Jeremiah Smith still has 2 more years. So does Ryan Williams from Alabama. Both those guys were like basically the best wide receivers in college football this year.
I think Jeremiah Smith would be a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Right now at 18.
Yeah. Did we talk about this before? Or did I talk to someone else about this? Like how like teams should be able to like draft their rights,
like Larry Bird was
like Larry Bird. Yeah.
I would, if I had the 13th pick in this year's draft, I would absolutely draft the rights to him.
Yeah, it would make 100% sense. And like, I mean, in some years, you've got like an older quarterback, and there's like this like stud freshman quarterback. You would like if you have like a top 5, top 10 pick, you'd probably want to do it, right?
I guess you could get into some issues where like if I'm that receiver, maybe I sit out more because I don't want to get hurt, or like I don't play through injury, and then it's hurting the college game. But
yeah,
I don't know. They'd figure it out. Money solves everything. But anyways, yeah.
And I mean they're getting paid at this point anyway to play college football. So
right, yeah, it's interesting.
One way or the other, they'd be getting paid.
I like it. Let's do it.
Other guys added, not as big of names, but the Patriots are slowly filling out their staff, which is good. Like I said, still no wide receivers coach, still a few more guys that we kind of have to figure out. But we didn't talk about Terrell Williams being hired as the defensive coordinator.
We did not.
Which clearly wasn't worth an emergency podcast like Josh McDaniels was. No offense to Terrell Williams, but just like not obviously as not the same connection or whatever, but we should talk about it. Seems like the defense is going to be quite a bit different under Terrell Williams. I was talking to someone on staff about that who essentially said that like it's going to look like a 3-4, but it's going to be a 4-3 under. And more of a one gapping scheme, more of an attacking scheme. And the one really interesting thing to me is that Mike Vrabel usually had like smaller linebackers with the Titans. And that's what this person said it's going to look like. It's going to look like what Vrabel and Williams were doing with the Titans, where they had like 230-pound linebackers. And like, I think there's probably still a role for Juwan Bentley because he's good enough. But I don't know if there's a role for Juwan Bentley, Jelani Tavai, and Sione Takitaki. Like, there's just a lot of big linebackers on the team right now, and I don't know if there's a fit for all of them.
Does that impact, say, your Kyle Duggars, your Jabril Peppers, as they sort of take on a box role? Because they are
I'm sure they
already
could still do that in like nickel and dime, but I do think you want like actual linebackers in there as well.
So is the idea there with like your 4-3 and your one gapping where you're taking up space with humans and then creating avenues for your speedy small linebackers to fly through?
Not as I think like everyone's just moving more upfield in this regard. Because like, yeah, it was a 2-gapping scheme for basically 25 years with Belichick, where your guys would take up space and your linebackers would take on blocks and run as fast as they can. This, I think, is more like guys are getting upfield. It allows your like weak side linebacker room to run around and make plays. Basically what it's going to look like is that like there's going to be still a nose tackle in the middle of the defense. And then on the weak side, there's going to be a 3 technique defensive tackles. It's going to be like Devon Godge on the middle, Christian Barmore on the weak side, and then a outside linebacker / defensive end next to the 3 tech. On the other side, there's going to be a 5 technique defensive end. And then next to him is going to be like an off-ball, on-ball hybrid linebacker, essentially. So that's why it's going to look like a 3-4, but that guy who's on the line, like the off-ball, on-ball guy is going to have like the versatility to move around and be able to drop back into coverage and everything like that. But like essentially, like if you're looking at players currently on the team, it would be like Devon Godshot, nose tackle, Christian Barmore there at the 3 tech, possibly Keon White as that like 5 technique defensive end, maybe someone like Tavai as that on-ball, off-ball linebacker, but they really don't have the weak side defensive end right now. Not to get too technical with all this stuff, but like that would be like Abdul Carter right now, looking at what the Patriots are going to be running on defense, really would be an ideal ad because he could either be that weak side defensive end or he could be the strong side linebacker who has the athleticism to go back in coverage and the pass rushing prowess to get upfield.
They would use Keon White dropping back sometimes, and it never quite looked right. It was
because he's like 290 pounds.
And I'm not saying he was bad at it. It just seemed like an odd usage of it. Which
100%. Yeah, like he's athletic enough to do it. It's fun to watch, but yeah.
Well, and when the Patriots acquired Jeffrey Simmons via trade, how does that affect your defensive line there? Because
I talk about Christian Barmore. I do think it's important to still say that like we don't know what's going on with Christian Barmore.
Right.
Like, we don't know what that's going to look like. Jeffrey Simmons is like the ideal fit as a 3 technique defensive tackle. And then there were still times last year where they would have like 3 defensive tackle types in the middle of their defense. So like, let's say Godshaw, Barmore and Jeffrey Simmons were all on the team. Like they could all fit in those pieces as like the defensive tackle, nose tackle, and defensive end. And I think Keon White like potentially could play that weak side defensive end spot, but I would prefer him more in that 5 technique defensive end role.
One thing about Keon White is there was 100 times last year. I marked it in my notepad here. 100 instances where he almost got to the quarterback, but didn't. So like that elite pass rushing speed is escaping him at the moment. So like that, it's not that, again, he can't do it, but it's probably not his best use.
Yeah, that's still why I would prefer him to be in that 5 technique end spot. And there was a player on the Titans I'm blanking on who I thought was like a very good comp. Danico Autry. Like Danico Autry is another guy who's like 6'5", 285, really thrived in that defensive end role for the Titans on the strong side. So I think that's potentially what like Keon White could do. I do think it benefits him being in more of a one gapping scheme, getting upfield a little bit more, not having to worry about taking on blocks and doing all the other things. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited to see what it looks like, just ultimately because like we haven't seen a new defense on the Patriots in 25 years. And this is going to be a new defense.
Yeah. Party on. And I saw on Twitter, I think Mark reported that Hightower's out, which confirms what I speculated on this podcast all year. Like maybe he doesn't know how to coach. Just the speculation. Still don't know. Great player.
Yeah, I would say that adding him immediately as a position coach after having never coached
like an assistant
anywhere before.
You should be a defensive assistant.
Right. Like most of the time that guy would be a defensive assistant. And like Bill Belichick did the same thing with Gerard Mayo. Obviously, when he first came in, he was immediately a linebackers coach, and it worked out for him as a linebackers coach. But that was one of the positions where like I was asking someone late in the season, like, what are some of the position groups that you thought were like, not like a mess, but like not necessarily where you wanted it to be. And it was like wide receiver, offensive line, and linebacker was one of those as well, where like, it's just a first year coach, not a lot of experience. Like you had Tavai and Christian Ellis playing most of the season. I don't think it helped when Juwan Bentley went out. So yeah, it's tough obviously, but
they might have been hoping for like when Steve Belichick was safeties coach and Devin McCourty was there and was like, I got you. But Bentley got hurt immediately and that did not help.
Yeah. 2 other guys, Jason Houtailing. He's like a longtime offensive line coach, assistant offensive line coach. He was also a head coach, I think, at Wagner or something. So another guy who knows what he's doing. My guess would be that he would probably be some sort of like assistant offensive line coach. And then Milton Patterson, who was a Florida A&M defensive coordinator / linebackers coach. He could potentially be a guy taking that linebackers coach role from Hightower, or maybe he's like some sort of defensive assistant. But ultimately, the pieces are coming together there. We still don't know like the cornerback or safeties coaches. Personally, I would do everything that I could to get Mike Pellegrino and Brian Belichick back on staff. Not sure how that's going though.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it'd be hard to nitpick anything about the corner coaching that we've seen over the past few years. Even, with Belichick leaving, they maintained or improved. Like, there was no sophomore slump for Christian Gonzalez. Nope. If anything, he got a lot better despite only playing 4 games as a rookie. So yeah, I'm with you there.
I would also say that Pellegrino's done a really good job of like managing personalities, especially like JC Jackson was an all-pro or something in 2019. And like, we've seen what's happened to JC Jackson since that point, but like to take a young player like that, an undrafted free agent, and coach him up to be an all-pro and to have whatever it was, like 7-8 interceptions. That was obviously a great job by Pellegrino. And yeah, he's done a great job with Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, all those guys.
Jack Jones was another player that was brought in and give it to him. So it's been quite a few years.
Yeah. So Belichick was like, hey, have fun with these guys.
Good luck.
Let's see how it goes. Good luck.
Are you going to be disappointed? Because for those that don't know, a little sneak attack Bill Belichick would do to keep the opponents from gaining any advantage was he wouldn't announce any of his hirings until that media guide came out in like August. You might know these in February. Will that bum you out? Like, and will that hurt the Patriots ultimately if everyone knows who their linebackers coach is?
It's obviously really gonna hurt them quite a bit. That everyone's gonna know who the coaches are. I don't know how the Patriots will survive. But yeah, I don't know. It's good. I think they're assembling a good staff. We'll see how they fill it out. Like I said, wide receivers coach is huge, but we'll see how they fill it out. Want to talk about what happened yesterday in the playoffs?
Yes, I watched the football, and unlike most weeks, I remember who played in the games, which is big for me. Sometimes the brain doesn't really function the way it used to.
That Eagles-Commanders game wound up being a pretty big stinker.
Yeah,
when Will Shepley's running down the field and
not just that, but like he got caught from behind, and you're like, and then he still scored anyway. It was just a mess. But that reminded me, Doug, of being at Gillette and being like, well, this is a friggin' waste of time in a conference championship game. Like the Steelers in 15 comes to mind. The Colts, obviously, in 14 comes to mind. Just games where you're like, this is supposed to be the 2 best teams. And like, I just remember the Steelers not covering Chris Hogan for an entire game after starting the season, not covering Gronkowski for a whole game. It's just like, guys, this isn't that hard. I mean, I didn't expect you to win, but the Commanders, 3 fumbles? It was too much. And Jaden Daniels,
people were just dropping the ball this weekend. I feel like because that was happening in the Chiefs-Bills game too. They were just putting the ball on the ground.
I forget who it was on Washington that fumbled the kick return. That ball looked slick. Did you see the replay?
Jeremy McNichols, I think it was.
That ball was shiny, that kicking ball. But Daniels was, rightfully praised, beating Detroit and all that for being unflappable in the playoffs and looking, like completely unfazed. He underthrew guys so badly yesterday. Like, I think that's why Eckler fumbled, because Eckler had to stop, dive for the ball, get back up. And it was the 3rd time where a player in the flat had to dive back toward the line of scrimmage to catch a ball. And it's like, it was just probably I think Jaden Daniels maximized probably what you could expect a rookie to do.
Yeah.
It's not that he was bad, but it was like just a bit off that everything kind of stemmed from there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it does make me want, Eagles looked great in that game, and it's possible that they're going to wind up winning the Super Bowl, but
probably not. I don't think so. Have you watched the Chiefs play a playoff game in the past 5 years?
Yeah, I know. It is what it is. But
I
will say that the Eagles offensive line situation was scaring me a little bit in that game because Landon Dickerson clearly couldn't play. But he was being so stubborn and being like, no, I'm going to play this game.
I'm good.
And then immediately after that was charged with a holding penalty, which was just so obviously grabbed a guy by the shoulder pads. And I was like, oh God. So hopefully they can figure that out in the next year.
I just feel like the 54 was a product of circumstance, and
I agree.
They're going to probably lose 24-20 in the Super Bowl. So sick.
Yeah, Barkley obviously has looked completely unstoppable. But then when Will Shepley also ripped off a 40-yard run or whatever that was, 57-yard run, I was like, I don't know. maybe it's not all Barkley. And clearly the Commanders weren't. Yeah.
The first run, it's like you weren't prepared for Saquon Barkley to get the ball, and he gets to the second level, and everyone just craps their pants, and then he's gone, and it's like, well, that was fun. Then you're hitting him out of bounds for no reason. It's just, it was, Dan Quinn, fun entertainment scale, would not want him coaching my team in a big game. Just that doesn't exude. There's not a lot of confidence oozing out of Dan. Well, there's a lot of confidence, but watching him does not inspire much of it.
7 rushing touchdowns in one playoff game. I don't think anyone talked about that being a record, but that's a lot of rushing touchdowns.
It was the most points for an NFC Championship game. I looked that up. It was the Cam Newton Panthers had previously had the record with 49, and they beat who'd they beat in 2016? No.
Legitimately could not possibly that information.
It was a terrible game.
It was 2015. They beat the Cardinals. Carson Palmer at quarterback. Carson Palmer threw 4 interceptions in that game.
Who could forget the great Cardinals playoff run to the NFC Championship? So there's another waste of an afternoon. But there was that. Brady was commenting on the game. I had a Brady thought, not related to Mahomes, just on his job.
Yeah.
Like, he was fine. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it just spotlights the fact that no one's worth $30 million to do that.
Right. Well, I don't know. Like, what do you benefit living in New England and criticizing Tom Brady? Not a whole lot. I will say that Brady's speaking cadence throws me off during the game because his entire broadcast feels like a run-on sentence, I would say. Okay. He never he just keeps talking like this, and then every sentence ends going up, and he never totally finishes, and there's kind of weird pauses, and it's purely just the cadence of him speaking, because he's saying smart things a lot of the time, but he doesn't feel like he's settled into speaking with full authority and knowing exactly how the cadence goes for most color commentators.
Yeah.
And I think it's possible that he'll improve, but it's not necessarily on the level of an Aikman or a Collinsworth or whoever you want to throw out there at this point.
Yeah. The Shipley replay was, he's like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, my legs are tired. Oh, let me look at the video board, see if anyone's behind. Oh, I'm getting tired. Oh man, I'm tired. My legs hurt. It's great. Thanks for taking us in his mind there. But no, I just watched it. I was like, there was no 12 men on the field moment for him like there was last week, but it was he's fine. Everyone was saying the Super Bowl is going to be a disaster. He'll be fine. It'll be fine. I do. And this might just purely be a me problem, because when Rich Eisen does play-by-play, his cadence also throws me off, his cadence of speaking. And Brady's cadence, you could go down the line. Mark Sanchez feels more natural doing it. I'm not saying that he's doing as good of a job, but it just purely feels like almost everyone else feels more comfortable in the role than Brady is. Well, I think that speaks to the fact that Brady just doesn't talk like a normal human and hasn't acted like a normal human for I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years.
Probably longer than it's truly that is true. Once you reach a level of fame, and once you're married to Gisele Bundchen, and once you're a billionaire, whatever he is, you just cannot be a normal human being the way that Mark Sanchez can, or Ryan Fitzpatrick, or name your quarterback who's clearly richer than 95% of the world, but they're not in that 0.01% of fame that Tom Brady is, and you just purely cannot be a normal dude anymore. So
I always point back. It was week 1 of 09, I want to say. Was that it was with the get lubed up comments? Was that 09? Right? Because it was his first game back, and it was a late afternoon. It was the Bills Monday night game, maybe. So I remember he said, get lubed up, which, yes, this is a little inside baseball here. People that go to the Patriots games, they do drink alcohol beforehand. They even during the game, they buy it in the stadium. It's crazy. And all he said was people are going to get lubed up. And then he had Mothers Against Drunk Driving issued a statement, and he had Stacey had to put a statement that he meant hydrate with water. And it was I feel from that moment, Brady was never normal in front of a microphone because everything was PR, politics, advertisement. So, yeah, we'll see. But speaking of cadence, did you see the clip of him, Edelman, and Gronk on the field before the game? Where
I did. He threw a bullet to Gronk.
He did, but even just like the Green 17, I believe was his call. And to me, it was like, we used to be a proper country. Like, this is what Champion Sunday used to mean. And it's like, damn, that's too bad. But he did sling that thing. I think he could step in and play.
I think like if I were someone in that situation, like I don't like Terry Broad, whoever else was on the field or whatever, I probably would have expected Brady to like, loft the ball to Gronk, but he just like it's an absolute bullet.
Like he treated the cameraman like a middle linebacker, like it went right over the linebacker. That was, we used to be a proper country. That's all. But yeah, Brady.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Like, it doesn't sound, but it's going to be, the Super Bowl is going to be fine.
It's going to be fine. Yeah, it is what it is. Let's talk about the GOAT conversation because there's been a lot of GOAT talk. I accidentally got into the mix last night because someone tweeted out that
tweet beef.
There was some tweet beef, but that wasn't my fault. But someone said Mahomes goated and he isn't even 30 yet. And then I know that everyone has to, there needs to be conversation for the next 2 weeks. People need to talk about things. It is what it is. Like, can we even wait? Can we wait till he gets to half the amount of Super Bowls? Like, I understand that he is playing better quarterback in the beginning part of his career than anyone has ever played through 8 seasons or whatever it is. So, like, if that's your criteria for being the GOAT, sure. But like Brady won 7 Super Bowls. I tweeted this out. Like he took 2 different Patriots rosters to dynasties. Like the 2001 to 4 and then 14 to 18 teams.
Right.
The only carryover other than Brady and Belichick, like on the roster, was Vince Wilfork, who was on the 04 team and the 14 team, but he wasn't on any of the other 4 Super Bowl championship rosters. So like, yeah, he didn't win 3 straight, but like, I don't know. Like to win 6 Super Bowls and then a 7th with the Bucs. Right. Obviously, I don't need to be having this conversation with Patriots fans. Like they all probably consider him to be the greatest of all time. But longevity matters. If Mahomes wins a 4th, I'm sure some people will consider him the GOAT.
Well, think about when Brady won 5.
Right.
They were still like, Montana's still the GOAT. Right. He never lost Super Bowl. It's like, that doesn't make that never made sense.
No.
Because he lost a ton of playoff games before the Super Bowl. Yeah. And you're holding that against Tom Brady. Yeah. Like he should have lost in the divisional round instead of the Super Bowl, and you'd hide. So like the arguments are always going to be, I mean, it's a sports debate, so there's no right answer except it is Tom Brady in this case. But to your point, when the Patriots were playing the Seahawks in the Super Bowl in 2014, Russell Wilson was about to win the Super Bowl twice in his first 3 years as a starter. Right. Was it 2012 he was a rookie, right? And then they won in 13, and then they went to Super Bowl again in 14. And it's like, this guy might break Brady's record. I remember thinking that when the Seahawks get up and they're winning, I'm like, this guy's a threat because Brady only had 3 to that point. And you're like, this guy's going to have 2. This defense looks like it's going to win 5 more Super Bowls. Like Russell Wilson might be the GOAT. And lo and behold, he screwed that up in the Super Bowl itself. But he had never won another one, never went back to another one. So like for as much as Mahomes' resume is already ridiculous, like you have to let the 30s play out.
Yeah. And because I mean, obviously no one was considering this for like Ben Roethlisberger, but to your point, like there was a time where Ben Roethlisberger was like going to tie Brady in Super Bowl championships midway through the 2000s or late in the 2000s. It was like, oh my God, that's I think a lot of Patriots fans were obviously rooting against the Steelers for that reason. So yeah, a lot of things can happen. And like to win, no one's ever won 7 Super Bowls before. So like if Mahomes can do that, if he can pass it, if he can do whatever, then like crown the guy. If he can do this for another 8 years, 10 years, whatever it is. But it just feels so early. Cause like you were saying, like, I feel like it genuinely took Brady to win against the Falcons for everyone to finally be like, okay, he's the GOAT. So like it required him to beat Montana by 1.
I remember, Doug, I was in Atlanta for the Super Bowl against the Rams, and I was getting ready one morning, and they had Good Morning Football on, and they had Mike Francesa on. And at that point, Brady was a 5-time Super Bowl champion going for number 6. And I remember like stopping in my tracks because it was like on the screen. It was like, who's better, Brady or Montana? And Francesca was like, I'm sorry, but Joe never lost the Super Bowl. Well, and I'm just like, how? So I don't know. There's always going to be that. I think there's the recency bias. Obviously, people are looking at it and they're seeing it and they're not seeing Brady play. And that's going to be a factor. There's also the element, Doug, because you and I are the perfect age, so we know everything. There are adults in their early, mid, late 20s who can't even conceive of what football looked like in 2001.
Right. Yeah.
They don't know. Like it might as well be reel-to-reel black and white crackling film with like old-timey ragtime piano playing underneath it, because it was another world to them. So when you see like the stats the first 7 years, you're like, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. You're talking about an era when people's shoulder pads were they couldn't walk through the door because their shoulder pads were so big. You had it was a different world. Like the league Brady entered and the league we watch now, I don't want to say they're nothing alike, but they have some crossover, I will say. The NFL in 2000 and the NFL now. There's some crossover. It's a quarter century.
No, it was a long. I mean, I think that the strongest case, also, not that we need to make these things because everyone agrees. One of the stronger cases for Brady still being the GOAT is that, like, if he had only been doing that in the early 2000s and they'd won and everything like that, sure, like maybe the eras don't cross over. Maybe like you could make the argument that, like, okay, yeah, but he was winning in like the 2000s. Football was completely different. Brady beat Mahomes in a Super Bowl. Like he has played in the modern era and was like arguably playing even better than he was playing in the early 2000s. So like, there's no like, you can, if you're a Mahomes fan or whatever it is, you can never make the case that like, okay, but Brady couldn't compete in this era. Cause like he literally did. Right. And he was 2-0 against him in the playoffs, which like, usually I don't care that much. Like, it's not like they're going against each other, but just the fact that he was able to be that good during Mahomes' era, I think absolutely does matter.
I want, and now you don't have to do this because we are a 2-person podcast and I don't speak for the both of us, but I want to be a podcast where quarterback wins matter because I believe in it. I believe in it. I've talked to Tom Brady and I've talked to Peyton Manning after some of these games, and it means something to them. They know, like, I have to be here because I know the other guy's doing this. So when people are like, oh, it's not just a quarterback win, loser. I know it's like a million things happen in a football game and you can't control all of them, but it's not a coincidence, you know, like these games, the fact that Mahomes is here again, it's not a coincidence. He didn't have his best game yesterday. He wasn't slinging the ball all over the yard. His best pass wasn't even caught by anyone. And it still managed to, or that was his longest pass, wasn't it? The 26-yarder that wasn't caught.
Yeah.
Maybe Worthy had a longer yak catch, but you know what I mean?
Right.
It's not a coincidence that the Chiefs have Mahomes and win these games. You know, like, and occasionally there have been games where Brady played poorly and the Patriots won, like the Chargers 07 AFC Championship game. But more often than not, like, it's just not a coincidence than these things
Mahomes
happen.
wasn't very good in one of the Super Bowls that they won too, right?
Yeah, I don't think his Super Bowl stats are very good, but there are people that will hold that against him. It's like, you do play the game that you're in, you know?
Right. Well, also, I mean, like, a quarterback, as far as like every player on the roster in a given game, like all 53 guys, a quarterback probably makes up like what, 20% of a team's success in a game?
I would probably say more.
So like 50% is extracted right away, offense, defense.
Roughly, yeah.
And then half of the other 50%, like roughly half is running plays. So you got to take out another 25%.
I don't take that out because I look at a quarterback as like the engineer of the offense that's driving the train.
Would you say like 20 to 25% then?
I might give him like 40% of that 50% because it's just so significant. And you look at, it's not just the throws and it's not just the reads and it's not just the athleticism. Look at the play that, now granted, Josh Allen made an unbelievable throw that Dalton Kincaid didn't catch for some reason. Reasons unknown. But pre-snap matters too.
Oh, for
sure. Yeah. You take that snap and there's 3 guys in your face and then you're just running for your life and throwing up a prayer. That's a big part of it too, where it's like, you know, oh, Allen made the throw. What more could he do? It's like, well, he could have read the defense better. You know, he got fooled. He got out foxed by Steve Spagnuolo, which He's not the first person to have that happen to him. But I just think it's like the whole comprehensive thing that the fact that Brady won Super Bowls, you could nitpick and say like, oh, well, he needed Malcolm Butler here, or he needed this or that there. And it's like, all right, well, there was like the helmet catch. There was the Manningham catch. There was 10 other things. There was remember the fumble in Super Bowl 42 that Pierre Woods couldn't recover, even though it was in his stomach. Like, that's football. But when the balance says X, you have to respect that. And right now, the balance isn't there yet for Mahomes. If he continues this, then I think we will logically have that conversation and be impressed by it. But like, can we just call it what it is, which is like an incredible. When did he start as the starter? 16?
No. Was it 18? He
18.
was drafted in 17, so 18.
My teens mix up. Yeah, because 17, the Patriots beat the Alex Smith Chiefs in the playoffs, right?
I think so. Well, in 18, they beat the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs too.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 18. So you're talking about a ridiculous, 8 years to start a season. Like, that's enough of a conversation for now.
Right.
You could say it's better than Brady's, but you're talking about two different sports. But
yeah,
there you go. There's also like just have you noticed? I saw a tweet this morning. I have my For You tab is all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But it was someone who said, like, I'd like to apologize to the Patriots. We thought your dynasty was obnoxious and annoying, but it paled in comparison to this. It's like, shut up. You don't mean that. Like, it was as obnoxious. It's the same goddamn thing. It's just now this is what's happening. Like, if you were to rewind in time, you'd felt the same way about the Patriots then.
I maybe this was just me not being close to the situation, but like actual people on Twitter and journalists and everything calling out Schefter for his like the wording of his tweet about like the NFL potentially changing rules for the quarterback. Like, I was like, wow, I can't believe people are this upset about it. I guess I can understand Chiefs fans being that upset about it. But the other thing though, too, is that like Mahomes does play a role in it. Like, he slides late.
Yeah. And he flops out of bounds and he fakes like he's going to go down.
Fakes to go out of bounds. Is it all on him? Does this happen to all quarterbacks? Yes, to some extent, but like he milks it a little bit more than everyone else.
Right.
And they do benefit from it. So like, I was shocked at some of the like replies and quote tweets and everything about Schefter's tweet about how they could potentially change the rule for Mahomes. When it's like, well, yeah, but they would be changing the rules for Mahomes. It's like, it's not stemming from any other specific quarterback. I don't know.
You did ask me if people in New England did that. And I was like, Doug, you've come to the wrong place because I made a mini career out of doing that. But the thing was, I was always right, which is crazy about me. But
it is pretty wild.
We should do probably like next week in that dead period, like 10-year Deflategate.
Yeah, we'll do something about Deflategate. Can I tell you about my the Twitter beef?
Yes. Long intro for the Twitter beef.
I don't want to get too far into it because it's probably boring to talk about. But what I tweeted was, maybe I'm crazy, but I think we should probably wait until Patrick Mahomes has won even half as many Super Bowls as Tom Brady before we start calling him the GOAT. This guy, he's got a job in the industry. He's like a fancy guy, I think. Quote tweeted by saying, "Yep, you're crazy." And then he replied to his own tweet by saying, "It has to absolutely suck being so deep in the cult that you can't appreciate when an alien graces our planet to play football. What an awful way to live." So he's talking about me by saying that. And I then quote tweeted by saying, "LMAO, people take quarterback GOAT debates way too seriously. What a bizarre thing to say." He replied, yes. "LMAO, so bizarre you initially brought the entire debate up." And I said, "Right, in a normal way." And then he said, "My mistake was forgetting whatever you say is normal and anyone else's opinion on that topic is not."
Tweet piece.
I didn't want to keep it going at that point. I was shocked that he was doubling down on saying that the way I live is awful because I think Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. Like,
and you don't see Mahomes as an alien. Ergo, your life sucks.
I mean, like, obviously, like, in wording it that way, you're like kind of doing a bit, I feel like. So then to double down and be like, "No, what I said was totally normal," was like, wow. Okay, I can't keep this going at this point. It was pretty wild. I don't know. It was a wild thing to say.
When you read a tweet beef out loud, it's like, oof. Every step is just like, oof. We're tweet beefing
Yeah.
in the year 2025. That's tough, but I don't hold you at fault. It seemed like you were genuinely curious. Like, are you okay? Like, what's going on with you, man? But
I will say,
I don't know. Has Patrick Mahomes played like an alien lately?
I mean, that's the other thing. Like the last 2 years, regular season, Mahomes has been good, but like he's not winning MVPs every year, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's had double-digit interceptions the last couple years. He's like 2022 was a fantastic season for Mahomes. I think he did win MVP that year. But then the last 2 years, like I wouldn't say he's been like mortal or anything like that, but he's had like pretty standard quarterback seasons. I don't know.
27 touchdowns, 26 touchdowns, 14 picks, 11 picks. Like he's been an NFL quarterback. He hasn't, I mean, he wins. And again, I'm not discounting that. He's in the win era of his career, which is good.
Right.
But
like those seasons are very comparable to the Brady seasons from the 2000s, from like 04-05 level, which,
Brady,
as we were mentioning before, was a completely different era. So, I mean, that is the wild thing. Like Mahomes is great, but like his defense was so good this year. I don't know if every single win is squarely on Mahomes this season. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe
Brady led the NFL.
Maybe I'm not appreciating him enough.
28 touchdown passes in 2002.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite stats of all time. But can we do 4th and 1 talk?
Sure.
Because it wasn't, I think everyone was on high alert looking for the refs to screw the Bills.
Yeah.
Here's my issue with that. And it's similar, if you want to talk about three-peats, Doug, the reason the Patriots didn't three-peat was because Ben Watson's chase down of Champ Bailey, they were not allowed to use logic that if the ball was here and got here, it had to have crossed through the end zone and could not have gone out at the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
But they didn't see the ball go through the end zone, so they couldn't use logic to put the ball through the end zone. So instead of a touchback, the ball was the one they scored. There was no clear shot of the brown football at the line to gain, so they couldn't assume it.
Right.
But what they did assume was that Josh Allen just must not have had a football.
Right.
Because
he had
the ball tight to his chest, like right in his sternum, like under his chin. Yeah. And his sternum crossed the line. Like the second L in Allen was at the 40 or whatever the yard to gain was. But like they couldn't see the ball, but it's like, well, the ball has to be there.
Right.
There's
it can be no.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have to be able to assume that, because what you are doing instead is assuming the ball took a nap while he did that. And then, so I don't know, that one felt fishy.
It did like and like this plays into it obviously too, is that like they didn't rule it a first down initially. So
then one guy did.
Right. But then in order to reverse it, they need that like conclusive proof that the football still exists in Josh Allen's arms. And that's where it gets tricky. So like, I think like based on the rules, based on like conclusive evidence, all these types of things, unfortunately, like it probably was right to not reverse it, but they should have ruled it a first down in the first place, because like they were both where they walked down the field initially, the refs, they were walking as if it was a first down, and they were like, oh, no, we don't know.
Yeah. Top of the screen had it. Bottom of the screen, it was probably inches short.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And the spot before that was not perfect either. So but I do think like probably everyone, I know that sports don't work this way, but they ran 50 QB sneaks for no yards. Like they didn't really deserve it. You know what I mean? So in the end, you kind of reap what you sow. I think McDermott, for as much as he respects Al-Qaeda, is not a great big game coach. I don't know how many more examples we need to see of it. And like my thought with the Bills, they waited so long getting rocks thrown at them by the Patriots for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Like I was explaining the history of the Bills yesterday to my daughter. I'm like, they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah.
And then didn't make the playoffs for an eternity. And now they're good again. And this is like their chance. They've won 5 straight divisions and have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And like, I'm not saying it's over. Josh Allen's young and powerful, but these things don't last for long times. You know what I mean?
No.
Windows, runs, everything. Their receiving core has already sort of stepped back. They probably could have used someone like Xavier Worthy as a receiver instead of Keon Coleman, but who am I to make that decision? But it's just they waited so long. McDermott took his beatings when he started. Josh Allen took his beatings. The Patriots finally drop off a cliff. The Bills are there to like hold that throne with a firm grasp. And now here they are again. I think it was the shots from the airport where there were like 20 fans to greet them this time. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of done there.
Slowing down. I think it's more fun when more teams and players have Super Bowls. So like that's the unfortunate thing about this Chiefs run for me is that like it would be fun if Josh Allen had won a Super Bowl. It would be fun if Lamar Jackson had won a Super Bowl. Like it would be fun if one day Justin Herbert wins a Super Bowl. But like
I was even, you know what I was saying? Early when Dan Quinn went for it on fourth down like 12 times in the opening drive and then kicked a field goal, I was kind of like, you know what? The field goal impressed me because I was expecting that dumbass to go for it again. And I was just like, you know what? Maybe 28-3 rocked his system and he went through the whole cycle and now he's ready to. And like, I probably would have rooted for Dan Quinn to win a Super Bowl because like, that's a cool comeback.
Yeah.
But of course he didn't.
No.
And then they kept showing Nick Sirianni's face and I was like, I just can't get behind that one. But I don't know. I agree with you. Like variety is cool.
Yeah.
But then I think like Bengals Rams, like what the hell? I didn't really enjoy that.
Yeah. I mean, no, it is like it's fun when the Chiefs are in. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the Eagles surprise everyone. Maybe they beat the Chiefs. I can't really see it happening.
You know what? Stranger things have happened. That's all I'll say. I remember doing some interview the week before Patriots Eagles Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And being like, listen, the Eagles are a really good team. They have a lot of good players. But if it's the 2-minute warning in a tight game and you have Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and you have Nick Foles and Doug Peterson, I'm sorry. I have only one way to go. And what happened is Peterson and Foles outdid it. So Brady took a strip sack.
There might not be a game in my life that I was more wrong about. I was like, I think that whole week I was just like, no, the Eagles don't stand a chance. Like Nick Foles is their quarterback. Like, what are we doing here? Then they won. So I don't know. People probably felt the same way about the 2001 Patriots.
You probably thought Malcolm Butler was going to play though, so that's a factor.
That is true. I did think Malcolm Butler was going to play.
You fool.
He didn't.
Anyways, we'll probably do Super Bowl talk, but I can't see anything happening between now and February 9th where I'm going to be like, I think the Eagles can do it, man. Like the Bills yesterday. Did I say this before we started the public bets?
Oh yeah, it was before, I think.
73% of public bets were on the Bills yesterday. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, I'm with you. I'd love to see the Bills win. I'm hoping it happens, but like, I'm not taking money out of my bank account and trusting anyone to beat the Chiefs. I've watched the sport before. I know how it goes.
Yeah, all right. So Chiefs, Eagles. We'll see what happens in the Patriots. I don't know, news cycle before that happens, but
could get like a Super Bowl week trade.
What was that? Oh yeah,
get like a Super Bowl week trade. We've seen that before. Yep. I mean, you can't finalize it till whenever, but
was that Matthew Stafford got traded during or was it Alex Smith?
Cousins got traded. Right?
I think Alex Smith got traded during Super Bowl week.
Yeah, it happens. Happens, man.
Yeah. So yeah, there could be some stuff. Our long-awaited Newfound Glory album rankings.
One of these days.
Yeah. Well, I actually listened to their first 3 albums straight through. So I'm starting to formulate some thoughts. I'll say that.
Wow.
And I'm sure there's probably like maybe 3% of our audience that would care.
But sorry, I got slaughtered by like it was probably 2 people, but by whatever I did was very offensive to the Coming Home album because I think that album sucks ass.
I haven't gotten there yet. Obviously, I've listened to it before.
I just never liked that one. That's when I kind of tuned out of Newfound Glory for a while and didn't come back until Not Without a Fight.
Not Without a Fight.
That was a good album.
So initial thoughts. We'll get into this later.
Teaser.
Sticks and Stones. It's always, I think I mostly still feel the same way about it that I did when it came out. Like, really solid album. Not as good as Self-Titled to me. It's pretty close between that and Nothing Gold Can Stay. when Nothing Gold Can Stay just sounds bad and sounds
Sure.
more like you're listening to a local band than like an
But it's
actual professional
like,
band.
but it's much better songs.
But the songs are
Yeah.
better, and so Sticks and Stones, I think that song "Sunny" is the 3rd track on the album. They went slow ballad way too early.
Right.
Like, self-titled is as good as it is because, like, if you just take those first 4 songs on the album, it would be, like, the greatest EP of all time. Like, all 4 of those songs are just absolutely unbelievable.
Right.
When then you come up with Sticks and Stones and your 3rd song is, like, a ballad about a family member dying, you're just like,
Not
you
punk
guys
rock.
really coulda kept the energy going a little bit higher to start off this album because they were smart on self-titled by sticking, Eyesore, is that the song? The slow
That was
one?
5th, right? Or
Yeah, it was like
no,
it
that
was
was
like
8th.
midway it was like 8th. It was like midway through the album. It was,
Yeah.
like, in a perfect spot. Sticks and Stones in general, I would say, has too many slow songs.
Well, that's why when they came out with Catalyst, they're like, "We're doing a hardcore song to
Yeah.
start this album just to sort of reset." But I would say this is good. This is deep Newfound Glory talk here. The self-titled is sort of like the encapsulation of the era in the
Right.
genre.
Yeah.
Like, you popped it on, you're like, "This is early 2000s pop
Yeah.
punk
Yeah.
in its glory." So it's like they probably wrote Sticks and Stones on the Road. They probably didn't quite have that same
Right.
aura about it, but it's like the songs were bigger, but not better.
Yeah, and even, like, My Friends Over You, obviously, that was, like, the big hit, but, like, I don't feel like that song is that much better than, like, any of the other high tempo songs on that album. They're all,
Mhm.
like, Head On Collision is also, like, a good, decent, high energy song. It's Been a Summer is, like, a good, catchy but I don't know. Yeah, self-titled would
Good
be still
preview.
my number 1.
This was good preview. We'll get there. This was also this week the 10-year anniversary of Blink-182 breaking up for the 2nd time.
Oh, wow.
I remember, this is football related. I landed in Phoenix to cover the Super Bowl for the first time, and I was like on my phone walking around, and it was like Travis and Mark like call out Tom DeLonge for lying and not showing, and I was like, ah, I wasn't really like into that run of Blink, but
Right.
it still didn't feel good. Still
No,
didn't
still
like it.
right. Yeah. Well, they're back. Newfound
They're
Glory
back.
never went away, but
Well, some of them did.
yeah, yeah.
We don't need to talk about that.
No, but Catalyst will be next. I this year I'm just going through like listening to a bunch of bands like entire discographies. So listen to the Descendants. I'm gonna get through all of Newfound Glory. Gonna get through all Bad Religion. Um, and yeah, that's how I'm gonna be listening to music this year. Just a lot of albums.
I did that during COVID when like working from home started, just like
Yeah.
hit play at the
Yeah.
beginning and just go through them all. And I did it with Radiohead because I never really listened to Radiohead.
Yeah.
And that was like probably as elaborate of a journey as possible. And like, oh, this is a band. They play rock music kind of. And then it was
Yeah.
kind of like, what's this? What's going on here? I don't even know if I finished. I think somewhere in Rainbows, I was like, this is not for me. And I'm glad it makes people happy, but
Scott Aukerman, who's a comedian, and Adam Scott, the actor in Severance and Party Down and all sorts of
Parks and
things,
Rec.
they do a podcast where they just like go through an entire band's discography, and it'd be interesting to do that with like punk and pop punk albums. I just don't know what the listenership is, and I also like they like play music in the background of them talking, and I feel like that goes against like the rights of podcasting, so I don't even know how it works, but
No.
it's an interesting concept. We will talk to you guys again soon, though. So, rate,
Great.
review, subscribe, do all those fun things, and we will talk to you guys later. Goodbye.